And welcome back to the Adoption Forum, brought to you by the Orphan Foundation. I'm your host, TJ Myers, and we have very special guests for you today, the Cancilla family, Mary, Warren, and Harrison. And also joining us is Joe DiDonato, co-founder of the Orphan Foundation. Hi. We are going to find out firsthand what it's like to go through the adoption process, and especially with a special needs child. So Joe, Mary, Harrison, and Warren, thank you so very much for being on our show today. Joe, we're going to start off with you.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about the Orphan Foundation.
Okay, the Orphan Foundation, our mission is to help rescue all the orphans that are out there in the world. There's about 163 million of them. And Harrison was one of them. Yay. And the Cancillas was our second family that we gave a grant to. So what we do is try to remove the barriers to adoption by helping out a little bit with the cost of adoption. It's about $20,000 domestically, $35,000 or more internationally. It's pretty expensive, and we're going to find out all about that today.
Fantastic! Hi, Harrison. You're the star of the show today. Yes, yes, you are. You know it too, huh? You're so precious. So, Mary and Warren, what's it like to have a special needs child? Is it any different?
I don't know what you think. I think we have a daughter who's 6 years old, and Harrison is a little over 1. And to me, it's been the same. It's been the same experience. He might, since it's the same, I know. Since he's a little delayed, maybe the different milestones come a little bit later, and that's the only difference that I've felt. We're kind of enjoying his babyhood a little bit longer.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I think also that there are some other differences in the way that families all pull together. Everybody wants to have a chance to help out with Harrison and to take care of him. And not that everyone didn't want to see Annalise, but it seems to be a slightly stronger thing with the special needs kid because everyone enjoys him so much.
Now, you said Annalise.
That's our daughter. She's our 6-year-old daughter.
Okay, how many children are in the family?
Just these two, Annalise and Harrison.
So, okay. So, it's just a little slower, but I know his nature is just amazing. I was out there in the green room, and he's amazing.
He's very happy. He's a very happy baby. I mean, he gets, he'll let us know if he's uncomfortable or bored or tired, or, he'll cry, but generally he's very happy. He's just great. He's been a great addition to the family.
So what made you want to adopt a special needs child?
Well, we had different reasons for doing it. Mary's, well, you can tell your portion. In general, I just like to help people try to make the world a little bit better than when I came into it, sort of philosophy. And when Mary presented the idea to me, I thought to myself, I should put my money where my mouth is, and jumped on this immediately. So here's her reason.
I have a lot of...
It's okay, big guy.
It's okay, he's tired.
It's not that he's been sitting here 30 minutes before the show started, poor guy.
That's right, big guy.
He lost those rings too. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with all sorts of disabilities. My first job when I was 16 was working in a home for multiply disabled children. And through all the children that I met, I always kind of had a connection with Down syndrome. It's just something that really just connected, something that I really loved. Yeah. And it's been something that I've wanted in my life, and I enjoyed having in my life. Whenever I was on the street, I would see someone with Down syndrome, and I would feel like I wanted to go talk to them, or, ever since I was young, very young.
He had a special condition that's unique to Downs, if you want to explain that.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite unique to Downs. I don't mean to cut you
okay.
off. 6% of all children have it, and 50% of kids with Down syndrome have it. So, so it is fairly unique to them, but it is in the general population. It's called tetralogy of Fallot. Tet being 4. There are 4 conditions that Dr. Fallot had noticed group themselves together primarily, beginning with the misplaced aorta. So if this were the heart, instead of the aorta being where it should be, it's out of place slightly or greatly. And that leads to all of the other problems, because then you have a hole in the heart, either ventricular in the back or arterial in the front. Then
Yeah, he had to have 2 operations so
Yes.
far, right?
Yes, 2 operations. The second one was just about a month ago, so his chest is still a little tender. He's got a nice big scar. Being a guy, I'm all proud of his scar. But the pulmonary artery is also smaller, the opening or the tube itself. In his case, it was the opening. And the heart, which is supposed to beat at a certain rate on each side, doesn't beat at quite the proper rate, which isn't as much of an issue these days as it used to be. So in his second operation, by the way, it turned out he had a hole in both the front and back.
Oh my goodness.
So which explains a lot, because after the operation he sat up for an hour, and normally he would sit up for less than 10 minutes, and that was it. And now, as you can see, he's massively active.
Well, in good nature too. I mean, it was fun that he wanted to be held by all of us, so that was kind of fun for all of us too.
Well, that's great, because after the operation, and I talked to the doctor about it, and he said, yeah, they do get a little traumatized by it, all the poking and prodding.
Yeah.
He's been very shy with people, pushing folks away and not wanting them to come up to him, afraid that something...
They're going to hurt
Exactly.
him.
Yeah, poor kid.
And when he saw you today, he just jumped right up.
Now, how did you... Oh, yes,
Yeah,
you
like
helped
he
him.
would know that, right?
Yes.
But anyways, it was fun to hold him. He's so cute.
Yeah, Joe and the Orphan Foundation, they've helped a lot of people. Now, you guys were the second
Second
The
family.
second
family that the Orphan Foundation has given money to help for the adoption process. So how did you run across Joe and the Orphan Foundation?
That would be Mary.
Yeah, my mom cut out an article from the newspaper that said the Orphan Foundation had grants for people trying to adopt babies, and so I just emailed. No, there was a form on the website,
yeah.
that I filled out, and luckily Joe contacted us.
Yeah.
That is
And actually
awesome.
worked really hard to get the money to us. We were having some trouble, yeah, because the adoption agency we used wasn't a nonprofit. They hadn't filled out whatever paperwork to become nonprofit completely yet, and it was going to take several months. And so finally, through my dad's church, we donated the money there.
Yeah, kind of the hard thing for us is the IRS wants to know who we're giving money to, make sure it's not, families and friends and everything. So the easiest way is through a 501c3. But as you bring up the adoption agency, you actually switched agencies, right?
Yes, we did.
That might be helpful to some of the people that are adopting. They're starting to think that maybe they're...
Well, like everything else, like doctors, like psychiatrists, any professional organization you go to, you want to check them out, do an initial kind of consultation and time with them, and make sure that they gel with you, which we didn't think about at first. We thought, oh, we have an adoption agency, we're going to stick with that. After 2 years a year and 8 months, of working with them and not quite gelling, we were in different places, them and us, about what we felt about a special needs child. Their belief was that it would be way harder than we could possibly imagine, and we shouldn't adopt one. So after a year and 8 months, we changed agencies. And in that change is when we suddenly started getting a bunch of calls, and were able to narrow it down to Harrison and be able to
Within
focus
3
on
months.
him.
Yeah, within 3 months we finished the home study process and had him in our home.
That's good. That's
Wow.
good.
Yeah.
So the adoption agency that you first worked with thought that it would be more difficult with a special needs child.
Yes.
They felt that we had too rosy an outlook on disabilities. But I have a lifetime of experience. I started working with disabilities when I was 16, and I'm far from 16 now. So,
2 or 3 years.
yeah, you know. But
And
even if it is, even if there are difficult things, people need to take on that difficulty. If parents have that ability and are willing to do it, I think it's important that parents do that, because there are wonderful babies with disabilities who need to be adopted.
I agree. He's
but
amazing.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But even if they aren't being adopted, I think that there's a bizarre stigma that occurs because almost universally from the initial adoption agency straight through to friends and family, the first thing we heard from most people is, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why would you want to do that? No, it's impossible. You can't adopt a special needs child.
You know that's going to be really hard. You know.
So what has been really hard?
Yeah, well,
Well, you know,
The heart surgery was
operations.
hard.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so hard.
That was tough, huh?
Yeah.
Going
the
to
it's
Down
better
the
now,
family's been
Harrison.
pretty supportive, though,
We
right?
saw a tunnel and a light, he says.
the families. Oh my goodness.
Where are
Don't
those
go
rings?
into the light,
I
is
know,
what
I
he's
should
telling
get
you.
the
Down,
rings.
they're down, but we'll get them.
The
break.
family's been extremely supportive. They, even though they had concerns
In the beginning.
in the beginning, the minute he showed up and showed his red hair and his cute little face, they were just with us 100%. And anything that was hard, they've supported us through. The one hard thing was the operation, just watching our child go through that. But we've had just so much support. It's been wonderful.
And there are also, I'm sure, going to be other problems along the way. As we mentioned, he is very slightly behind the curve. I do check periodically because I work at a school, so all the psych teachers are telling me that he's actually pretty close to where he should be. So I'm not worried about that. But when you do have a special needs child, you do have to be aware of what might come up, how to handle it. And as long as you're prepared, it's not going to be nearly as bad as everyone makes it out to be. And along the same lines, and what I said earlier is that the stigma, people think, oh, I'm going to have a special needs child, I better put it up for adoption, which is exactly what happened with him. And it's not necessarily the case. But this is the initial thought a lot of people have, is that, oh, I'll never be able to handle this.
So yeah, his nature seems even better than a lot of regular children. What's the proper thing to say?
We say typical children.
Typical. There we go. Perfect.
And children with Down syndrome rather than Down syndrome kids. It's a minor difference, but what it really speaks to is you're identifying the child, not the condition.
Gotcha.
So he's a child with Down syndrome, not a Down syndrome with a child.
Well, you just fall in love with him, huh, Harrison?
Well, maybe when we come back from the break, we can find out a little bit more about what you both do and sign language and how that plays a role and all this good stuff.
Yes,
too.
and check out the orphanfoundation.org, orphanfoundation.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Adoption Forum. Now, Mary and Warren, we'd like to know, how long ago did you adopt Harrison?
We got him when he was 4 days old, or at least that's when we first met him. They had called us and said, there's a baby born with Down syndrome in Sacramento. If you want to adopt him, get there now. So we grabbed Annalise, drove up to Sacramento, and that was a year and 3 months ago, and stayed with him and the family. It's an open adoption, so we got to meet and know the family. We keep in close contact with Grandma. His mom doesn't quite want as much contact. Sorry about that, Harrison. I'm talking. But his mom doesn't quite want as much. She wants updates, photos. But Grandma calls us once a month, or we call her. And when she comes down to go to Disneyland, she wants to come visit him next time.
Oh, that's wonderful. So the open adoption is working well then?
Yes,
Very well.
Yeah, it's working very well.
A lot of people with closed adoptions, older folks I talk to who either adopted or were adopted themselves, they tell me that they freak out. They're like, no, you don't want to get to know the family. And I think that a lot of the problems they've run into is just because of how harsh closed adoptions are on people, that people do freak out. The children do want to know, why were they put up for adoption? Why didn't their parents want them? That sort of question. Or the parents, one or the other, might suddenly decide, no, I want that child, and cause some sort of problem. But with the open adoptions, instead you get a situation where everyone's communicating, they know the child's being brought up well, and the child, whenever he or she wants, can ask whatever questions they need. So there's no mystery, no secrecy, and the more open the situation is, I think the less troubles you run into.
I agree. I mean, I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old, and my records were closed. And I always wanted to meet my birth family just to see what they look like and was there any real diseases and stuff. And it was difficult, and there was a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
So that's great that an open adoption works also.
Yeah.
Now, I hear that you do sign language. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm a sign language interpreter. That's my job.
But she's also exceptional at it. She just passed tests for the UCs, was it?
The RID, the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, CI and CT, different certifications.
So what did you get 89 out of 100 on?
Oh, that was for LA Community College District, yeah.
She got the top score, 89 out of 100. No one even came close to her.
Yay, Mom!
And that's a real helpful thing with children with Down syndrome, right?
Right, because the speech might be delayed, so in order to be able to communicate, to know what they want, you can teach them sign language and use that until the speech comes in.
Now, this is also important for typical kids, kids of all sorts, because you do have a language window. By 8 years old, it closes, and if you haven't developed language skills, you'll be a low language level person, just not understanding certain things or being able to communicate certain things. So even typical kids, we took our daughter, Annalise, at 6 months, started teaching her sign language, and by 9 months, when she cried, Mary was able to ask her what it was. She signed that she wanted Dad. They called me on the phone, and she got totally happy, and everything was okay. Her language skills are far above most other kids of her age, and I'm not just saying that because I'm her parent. People always look at her and go, how old did you say she is? There's no way she's just 6.
They always mention how well-spoken she is.
And that's because she developed the knowledge of the words through sign language. By the time other kids were saying car, she was at, look, red car going.
Yeah.
And really developed great skill by doing the sign language early.
Mm-hmm. So how's he doing with the sign language?
He's not as interested.
Yeah.
He's
What I've noticed is he really loves watching it, and he loves imitating it, but he's not yet communicating with it.
And how old was your daughter?
Annalise, when she first started signing, she was about 6 months. When she would say like butterfly and flower and things like that, or hungry or bottle. Signing it herself. Yeah. And Harrison's imitating it, and he will understand some things. He understands milk and cracker and
father, mother.
Father, mother. So he'll understand some things, but he's not quite doing it. He does do Finnish.
He does do
I've seen him do that.
And
Yeah.
Cool.
a lot of
now I
times,
can do it. I learned something today.
and a lot of times for Dad, he'll just kind of wave his hand and
It's kind of like,
I got a lot of that when I was a kid. So that's what it meant, huh?
yeah.
So,
But
looking ahead in the future now, anything that you have to do special for schooling going forward, or
well, even for not schooling, and this is one of those things that that does make a special needs child a little more work, and I didn't mention it earlier. When they come out to evaluate them, because you call the county, I guess.
actually, I'm just going to interrupt you. When he came into our home, not even 3 weeks later, maybe a week later, we got a call from Tri-County Regional Center I guess they're located in Simi Valley. And they called us and said, we found out that you have a baby with Down syndrome in your family. Congratulations, and we want to come out and evaluate him for services.
oh wow,
They called us, you
that's
know.
pretty good.
So yeah, it all just fell right into our laps.
But they come out and they do occupational therapy, they do physical therapy, and now we've actually started bringing them over to their facilities because it's better conditions than our home. But again, you know, when you do have a special needs child, that's a consideration. If you don't have the time, be lucky like I am. We're right near Mary's mom, so her mom and her mom, Ginny, and her husband, Ron, take him out there once a week to the facilities where they do both the occupational therapy and the physical therapy. Mm-hmm. And it's actually really great to have them help out because I work 5 days a week, 1 to 10 p.m., so that's a big chunk of time in the middle of the day.
Is it right at one of the local schools? Is that what you?
Santa Monica College.
Oh, it's college.
So it's local, but not quite local. It's an hour's drive.
Yeah, that's a long drive down there.
So how did Annalise, your daughter, when you told her that you were going to adopt another child, how did she react?
Can I
She
start?
was, sure, I was going to say she was just excited. She was very excited to have a new baby. But
Well, like everything else, she had seen ear piercings and liked them, but one day she just turned around to Mom and said, let's go get my ear pierced. And that was it. That was the day she wanted to do it. And she had been asking for a brother or a sister for some time. She was ready. She was at that point where she was very ready. So she was 5 or 4?
she was 5.
She was 5 at that point. We talked with her a lot about it because obviously we were bringing in a child who would be special needs, who would need a different kind of situation at home than a typical kid. And also, that wouldn't be her expectations. So we had to really foster in her the understanding that this child wouldn't be like the kind of brother or sister that she might have imagined. So she had a lot of preparation, and she has been such a loving sister. My favorite story is she went up to a kid who was about a head taller than her at her preschool, at her kindergarten, and because he'd been laughing and whispering about him being probably retarded, whatever term kids use.
He was asleep and his tongue was sticking out a little bit, so he was making fun of Harrison.
And she just went up and she goes, "That's my brother, and you don't make fun of him." And she looked up at him and it was not going to take any guff.
I can imagine she's going to be a little bit overprotective, huh?
She's going to be
is.
definitely
Yeah.
overprotective.
Oh,
She
that's
is.
so wonderful. So that concerns me that your first adoption agency was telling you guys that you guys could not handle that.
That concerned us, and at first we thought, well, we're stuck. We've assigned ourselves to an agency. We have to stay.
And we had put in so much time and money at that point.
Yeah.
So again, that was almost 2 years you were with one agency.
Yeah.
Right.
And they gave us, I think, we didn't know they would do this, but after a lot of wrangling, they gave us most of the money back. I think we got stuck for $500. But we were very glad to find a group that was willing to look at the possibility that that adoption is a good thing when a family wants a child. and that no problem is insurmountable if you're willing to work for it. What Mary didn't already know from years of her knowledge of working with kids with special needs, she researched. We have books that we've bought, her parents have bought, that we've continued to study since we've had him, because just because you've read or you had some knowledge, especially in medical situations, doesn't mean it's always going to remain up to date. So you've got to keep re-educating yourself.
I thought it was so good natured.
As one lady said, she said, you've got to be your child's biggest advocate, because frequently the doctors are going to tell you one thing, and if you believe it's something else, you've got to keep plugging away until you get them to hear you. And that goes for everything, including this agency. And when we realized that they weren't meeting our needs, and we were clearly not what they wanted, it was time to go somewhere else. And it was confusing at first, too, because we thought, oh my God, this is going to be some horrible stain on our record, when you're a kid. This is going to go on your permanent record. And we were afraid of that.
Uh-oh. Now, how was it when you guys hooked up with Joe DiDonato and the Orphan Foundation?
Yeah, I did most of it. The only issue was just trying to get the money to us, which I mentioned, but it was just very positive. It was wonderful communicating with him and just how hard he was trying to help us out. I was really just very touched by that.
I was overjoyed. We got invited to a dinner of some sort where we were going to...
Our board meeting.
A board meeting, that's what it was. I couldn't remember just now what it was.
Everybody wanted to meet him.
Yeah, and I felt bad because we'd missed it, because I had been looking forward to it. I was all excited. So it was really kind of a thrilling thing to suddenly be a part of a bigger thing than our little family.
Yes, definitely.
Well, you guys are our model parents, and thank you for doing this. If we had a few more folks that thought about family and life like you, we'd have a lot more kids and families and growing up happy.
Yeah, and Joe, you and the Orphan Foundation have just touched so many families' lives with what you guys do. And I hope you guys out there, please go to the orphanfoundation.org and see what you can do to also touch the lives of a child or these parents out there. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I know I learned something, so we're finished. Join us next time. Thank you so much.